How tough was it to release Aaron?
Yeah, really tough. I mean, obviously, the business of football never stops, and those things are, any player that's, kind of committed to the way he has to our football team, just the way, he was in our locker room, and obviously a very productive player. That's always tough, but I think over time you get used to it, but that's just kind of the business of football. But we wish him well. He couldn't have represented us any better in his time with us, so, but very tough.
When we last talked to you, you were pretty determined that he'd be back.
Mm-hmm.
When did that change? How did that change?
I think just through the process of going through, obviously, you guys know we asked him to take a pay cut, and as we went through that process, and then we kind of realized it wasn't going to probably come to fruition, and obviously we had to do what was best interest of the football team, and that's what we did.
What did you see with Jacobs, and why did you think he'd be a good fit for Matt and kind of what you guys do offensively?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a very proven back. He runs with a lot of violence, explosiveness. He's a bigger back, a durable back for the most part, and he's really a guy that can flourish in all phases as a runner, as a blocker, and certainly as a pass catcher. So, really excited not only to have the player but the person added to our football team.
I know people think you guys never spend money in free agency, but why did you on McKinney?
Yeah, I just think he's a unique player to come available. He's 24 years old, one of the top safeties in the game. A guy that can be a game-changing type player, and he really kind of fits a little bit of the criteria we're looking for in a free agent. Not only as a player but as a leader back there, and obviously extensively scouted him through college and liked him quite a bit coming out. And he's done nothing in his time in the NFL to change that. So again, not a lot of these guys become available. So when they do, I think it's important for us to always kind of go down that road to see if we can acquire them.
There are some, I guess, pretty solid veteran options still available at safety. Would you rather pair him with another veteran or a young guy that can? Well, he is a young guy, but
yeah.
A guy you draft maybe early.
Yeah, certainly. I think we'd always prefer to have a younger guy that's going to have his best football ahead of him. But I think we'll look at all options as we go forward. Certainly, with the draft coming up, which I think will be important, and we've had some success finding guys after the draft in the free agent market that have fit us very well. So. Again, I spoke to you guys in the past about how this kind of never stops, and we'll continue to look at ways to add to our football team, kind of keeping this year, but also, the years in the future in mind as well.
Do you have any concerns that the safety class wouldn't offer you somebody who you feel okay about playing right away?
I think it's a pretty good safety class this year. It's the draft's unpredictable. It's how those things fall, whether that comes to you. But it's a pretty good safety class. But I don't think going into the draft it's anything you can ever count on. Just because you never know how it's going to fall.
Can you spend, big? Can you spend $8 million on another safety?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do whatever you'd like. It's just there's going to be obviously consequences to that, right? Not only within this year, but then within future years. So, I feel really good about our roster right now. Our numbers are higher than they've been usually going into this time, and certainly I think we have a number of players that are entering the prime of their career. So I feel really good about it. But at the same time, if there becomes a player that fits what we're looking for, not only as a player but financially as well, then we'll consider it. But we can do that. But I do think there's ramifications to that. So that makes sense.
How long have you kind of had your attention on Josh Jacobs from afar, like what he might be able to fitting into this offense? Yeah,
I mean, I think like every year when you go into your free agency meetings, you're studying all these guys and understanding what players are available. And you're monitoring that, right? Because franchise tag, transition tags, guys re-signing. To be real honest, not until I think we got down to a certain point with Aaron that we realized that this might be more problematic than we thought. That we turn our attention to really maybe studying those guys and seeing if that was going to be an opportunity or not.
Aaron took a pay cut last year, right? Was it a surprise to you when that precedent is set that didn't continue, that you didn't take a pay cut this time?
I wouldn't say it's a surprise. I mean, again, I think we were working, and he's got a great agent to work with. We were working towards that solution, but sometimes things just don't work out, and don't blame him at all. He's always done right by us, and again, it was one of those tough moments, but it was a necessary one for us.
So when you start those talks with him, you didn't know Jacobs at that time was going to be available, did you? And did his becoming available change your thinking at all there?
Well, I mean, again, you don't know if,
We
again,
thought they might tag him, right?
again, yeah, up until that Monday, you don't really have an idea of, I mean, whether they're going to be re-signed or, if they were tagged. So, like, you don't really know, but you're certainly studying those things. And, but yeah, you don't have any idea until Monday what's going to be able to be accomplished and what's not. So, we never take anything off the table, even with Aaron. Like, that wasn't something as we went through Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Not really understanding how that's going to unfold. But once we got into Monday afternoon and we realized there was going to be an opportunity to sign a player like Josh, it was just something I think I didn't feel we could pass up.
Was there ever a consideration to have both in the backfield? And that's quite the one-two punch.
Yeah, we certainly looked at that. I think there's a number of things involved with that. One is not only what it does to our cap this year, but what it would do to our cap next year. And I think, my feeling was that was going to be a little bit too much for us to do.
Brian, how with Keyshawn getting him done long term, how high was that on the list of priorities, and what does that do for you now to kind of have him locked up?
It was a high priority. I think he did such a good job for us in his first year as a starting nickel and playing that many snaps on defense. We certainly think his best football is ahead of him. So we're excited about what he can do for our defense. I think bringing in Jeff Hafley and having him give him some time to really study Keyshawn and make sure that was a fit was important. And he's very excited to have him back as well. And then certainly the kick return stuff is an added part of this. But having some stability within our secondary, I think the nickel position in general has become more and more important in our league. Having a guy who can do multiple things there, not only cover, but be an instinctual guy that can take the ball away and also play against a run, just because of how much those guys are involved. So I think that position in particular has become more and more valuable, and we spend a lot more time looking at exactly how we want to do that. And he just really kind of fit us, not only as a player, but just what he brings to our locker room as well.
Are you for the kickoff return rule?
I think there's. I think it would be nice to get the kickoff return back into the game. How we do that, I think, is up for debate. There's a lot of that going on right now, so we're working through that right now. But I would like to see that play return. It was kind of a non-existent play, but how you do that, I think, is I think everybody's all over the board on that one.
Did you see enough from Keyshawn to feel good about him being your starting nickel next
I do.
season? Is that still
No, I do. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be competition, and you guys have heard me talk this year a lot about it. We want to make sure that everybody feels that as we go into. So certainly there'll be competition, but I certainly feel really good about Keyshawn, what he did as a first-year player with that many snaps in the nickel, and where he's headed. Him having some stability there, I think is something that gives me some peace.
So this morning I talked to a couple of the AFC coaches about this being proactive, drafting quarterback, and one of them said, you've got to feel really good about your chances of being around in 3 years to, to benefit from that, to do it. What made you confident that you'd be around in 3 years with the glove?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I ever really thought about it like that. I think I've had a great example of, not only Ron Wolf, but Ted Thompson, about just doing what's right for the club and not really worrying about that stuff. I think when you get into this football thing, you understand it can be short-lived. And I think, to think about those kind of things that way is a pretty selfish way to think about it, because it's really, your time here is not forever, and it's about doing what's right for the club. And that was never a thought as I went through that. I knew this was the right thing for the club. You never know how it's going to turn out, but I've always thought the decisions at those points were right for the club. Some work out, some don't, but never really put a thought on it, like what that might mean for me or anything else.
So when did you first talk to Mark that this was at least on the radar? Is that 3 weeks before the draft? Is it in the draft room as the first round's unfolding?
It's not one of those things that I particularly talk, like you don't know how things are going to fall. I think every year I talk to him about there's a possibility we can take a quarterback. I mean, that's every year. So at any pick, I mean, that's just, if that's the best player on the board, then that's the way we're going to go. I think that was a COVID year, so there was not a lot of, face-to-face communication, but I do remember talking to him a little bit, maybe, a month and a half before the draft, that there's a pretty good quarterback class. And certainly one of those guys might be available to us, but we'll see. Yeah.
What did he
Oh,
say?
yeah.
What was he like?
No, he's always very supportive. He understands that, and he understands how important the quarterback position is. and he's always been very supportive with whatever we want to do. So.
Have you begun discussions with his reps about an extension? Is
Yeah.
that something you'd like to, maybe get done before he gets in for mandatory stuff yourself? I know it's
Yeah.
not until May 3rd that you
Right.
can officially do something.
Sure, yeah. There's been some obviously preliminary discussions, but we want to do it the right way, and certainly the sooner the better. But at the same time, I think we want to make sure we do it the right way. So we've started, but it's not something that's going to go quickly. I don't think it'll take some time.
You said at the Combine you guys were pretty thin at linebacker. I know you re-signed Eric Wilson, released Campbell. Do you feel any better about the depth there? Do
Yeah.
you feel confident that McDuffie can play a lot of snaps for you if
Yes.
you need to?
Yeah, I feel really good about Isaiah. We obviously signed Eric Wilson back. We signed Christian Welch back, two guys that were here last year, played a lot on teams. Eric's got a pretty extensive history playing linebacker in this league, so I feel much better now. But again, we'll add. I'm sure whether it's the draft or later on in free agency, I'm sure that we'll add to that competition in that room. So, but I do feel better about it today than I did when I think I spoke with you guys last.
When you look at that defense, the change at linebacker from 4-3 to 3-4 to 4-3, what are you looking at strong linebacker specifically? What are the traits for that? Because we haven't seen it. Right?
Yeah, really, I think it's again, and I think everybody might have some different opinions on that, but really all three of those linebackers are pretty interchangeable in my mind. That extra linebacker, it'll be interesting how we go about it this year, but he's only on the field 15% of the time or less at times. I think the most that team really kind of utilized that was close to 20%, so it's not a lot. But all three of those guys, I think, kind of, I don't know if there's really a whole lot of different skill set. They got to be able to do everything that we're asking them to do, from instinctual in the run game and pass game. Quite frankly, for me, and I've talked about this a lot, you got to be very careful pigeonholing guys in positions that are that can just only do a certain skill set, because you have so many injuries in this game that he may be the strong side linebacker today, but he may be starting at Will or Mike for 5 or 6 games. He's got to be able to do all that. So from a personnel man's perspective, I want his guys as versatile as can be, so that when those things do pop up, we don't have to change the way we play. If that makes sense.
Is that the position that changes the most from 3-4 to 4-3, or what position? I don't know the 4-3.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I mean, to me, really, inside backers are inside linebackers, right? So, certainly they will be asked to do slightly different things, but at the same time, there's a lot of that is crossover. So, they're going to have to play off the ball and defeat blocks and go make tackles, and they're going to have to cover guys outside of in the backfield. But at the same time, again, I think the majority of the time we're going to be a nickel. That's really our year-based defense now is nickel. It's really base has become a sub-package.
What did you see from Brenton Cox last year? I know he didn't get a lot of snaps, but he's probably going to have to play if JJ takes a while to rehab.
Yeah.
Is he maybe more ready than he was when you signed him as an undrafted free agent?
Yeah, I would certainly think any player should be more ready after year one, going into year two. He had a really good training camp and he flashed a lot, and really we stayed fairly healthy in that group most of the year, which really prevented some of those younger guys from getting on the field, because we had a few of them that we were very excited about. And sometimes that's just the way it goes. Our defensive line was the same way. We were very healthy, knock on wood. I think he's got a bright future. He can, he's shown through college and even last year in his brief time with us that he can rush the passer. He's got a lot of the physical traits we're looking for. So I think he'll be ready for his opportunity when it comes.
And what did you see from Sean Ryan last year? What's your level of comfort with him now, especially with John gone?
Yeah, he really grew a lot from year one to year two, and really proud of not only his work ethic and the shape he got himself in, but then when his opportunities were presented, his ability to capitalize on that. I think there's a lot of really good football in front of him. His best football should be in front of him, but he got that opportunity the second half of the season to split some reps, and when he went in there, he proved to the coaches that they kept doing it. They kept him out there. So that was, obviously I think we anticipated free agency and whether we were not, going to be able to bring John back or not. So having him get that experience, I think, will serve us well as we go forward.
About the only thing we weren't able to see with Jordan last year is do it again, right? Because he went through everything, but then it's year two. And
right.
How much does year two change from defenses having more real to Matt being able to build with Jordan? How much does year two change for him?
I think certainly he's going to face different challenges. Not only from the teams we face, but the different personnel we may have and he may be playing with. So there'll be different challenges. I think hopefully, as you go through year one as a starter, and him and Matt, and the other teammates work together on how to solve the challenges that are in front of us. They have a better idea of how to work together to solve those through the week and through the games. But so I think certainly, hopefully, that experience will carry over. But every year is different, and the challenges, you can try to anticipate, but you really don't know where those challenges will come from. So there'll be different ones. But again, I think having a year's worth of challenges to work through together and the continuity of that will hopefully serve us well as we go forward.
With how his season went from the highs that he had to the way it ended, was there anything after the season that stood out to you about his eagerness to get after it for that year too?
Yeah, I think, to me, the thing that's always stood out to me about him is he just doesn't waver in his commitment and his work ethic. So I think there was a certain level of confidence on not just with Jordan, but with our entire football team as we went through the second half of the season that got them excited. But the work ethic, the way he goes about his business, that doesn't seem to waver, and that's a good sign for the future.
I was looking at some of the depth charts of teams that play 4-3, and there was a fair share of 240 to 250 pound edge guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you're 260 to 265 to 275.
Yep.
Is that a Brian Gutekunst playing in Green Bay thing, or is that so? In the 4-3, or are you more open to maybe adding a little more speed, smaller guy?
Yeah.
For this scheme.
I think I'd prefer bigger guys on the edge, but at the same time, I think, if they have a skill set that can work, some of those 240 to 250 guys may be able to help on special teams more than, let's say, your 270 guy can. So I think it just really depends on the player. What I don't want to do is get small. I think you've seen some of these 4-3 teams with the way they play, particularly in some of the sub packages where they may move ins inside. They can get small in a hurry, and I don't want that to happen. So certainly that'll be something we focus on as we move forward.
What do you think of the running back class this year? And, going into free agency, did you expect to bring AJ back? How did that kind of develop? Are you fine with him and Emmanuel maybe fighting it out for that number 2 spot?
Yeah, no, it was really nice to get AJ back. I don't think we expected that as we went into it. We did have the luxury of the 4-year qualifying offer, which is a unique.
I had no idea what that was.
Yeah, a unique rule in the CBA, the last CBA, that I really think is a great benefit for players that have been in place for 4 years and guys who are core players that maybe you have the ability to retain them that you wouldn't have had in the past. So I really liked it that we were able to bring it. We wanted to be able to use that, and to get AJ back, that was a kind of a nice surprise. But I think that the free agent running back class was very strong. There was a bunch of experienced runners out there, and I certainly think that affected a lot of the things in that market. And we'll kind of see how this draft class unfolds.
Did you see that qualifying offer, the contract, becoming more of a thing now that it's been implemented? Because I know everyone's talking how unique it is, but it seemed like it really is something that was rather new in terms of this particular version.
Yeah, it's been used sparingly over the past few years by teams, and again, there's not a lot of guys that qualify for it, just with the way the nature of our league is right now. But certainly, it's something that. It's a benefit to the player, which is fantastic, and obviously for us, you're able to keep a player and within your salary cap structure that you wouldn't have been able to before. So it's nice.
Does Josh, in your opinion, he's carried the ball a ton in his career, and he's as close to a workhorse as was fine in today's league. Does he kind of change the dynamics of having that offense because he is built for that, or is that something that you want to keep in place no matter what?
Yeah, I'm a big believer you need to have multiple running backs carry the ball. Certainly, Josh has proven that he can, but I think in a perfect world we'd be splitting those carries up between 2 and 3 backs, not just one. That's tough on a running back in this league, and I just think having a versatile group of running backs, particularly how much we'd like them to catch the ball as well. I just think. You get down the road with too many touches, that's certainly going to affect those players. So it's nice to have somebody to share the load.
When you evaluated what's next for Josh, he's played 2 fewer seasons than Aaron. He's had more carries in his career than Aaron. Is that a concern as he ages because of the nature of his position? Do you feel like there's plenty left? And how do you evaluate the work?
I think it's a little bit case by case, and it's a little bit of studying the film, studying the tape, and and looking at the numbers as well, but just kind of seeing where his career arc is going, and certainly we feel his best football will be ahead of him. That's something we feel very strongly about, and knowing the player and the person and how important it is to him and his work ethic and those things also factors in.
How long till you'll know whether Valentine is a real starter in this league?
I mean, I think he showed last year that he certainly, he was, and he played very consistent football for us. I think his best football, again, is ahead of him, like a lot of our guys. I think he needs to get a little stronger, and I think he will. But I think the positions we put him in this past season, he answered the bell quite a bit throughout. Some of those were on short notice, and to come in and compete like he did, that was you don't see a lot of that out of seventh-round players. But he had a lot of belief in himself. When the opportunities came, he certainly capitalized on them. So I like the way that if we can stay healthy there, I like the way the competition in that room is shaping up.
Xavier, go ahead.
I was just going to say with Jordan, the plus side to sitting him for 3 years is he's more ready now than he would have been. But you're about to give him, I assume, dozens of millions of dollars per year when he's played, 3/4 of a season at a performance that warrants that money. Is it a risk that excites you? Is it part of the job? Like, how do you kind of view what you're about to assumingly commit to him, given the little playing time he's had?
Yeah, I mean, and there's in every contract extension, draft pick, decision we make, there's a ton of risk and all that. It's just part of it. At the same time, I think the nice thing about having a guy in your building for the last 4 years is you absolutely know who he is. Again, there's no guarantees that, anything going forward, but we know how he's going to respond and how he's going to react and how he's going to work. And instead of signing a player that has not been in your building and guaranteeing all that to him, certainly having 4 years with him, I think gives us a lot of comfort in what he's all about and how his teammates look at him and the organization looks at him. I think certainly that gives me a lot more peace than in a different situation.
So Xavier, you haven't had him in the building these past 4 years, right? And you look at the safety market throughout the league, it's kind of been devalued. But you went out and aggressively got him. And was that a byproduct of you need to do something at the position? Was it the player? Was it both? Why go against the grain?
Yeah, to me it was more about the player. Again, as we evaluate every free agent class, there's very few guys that really fit, I think, the criteria that he did, that become available. Usually got players like Xavier most of the time. It's more trade type situations when they become available, if at all. So when he became available, as we went through the process, we had a number of players who said if these guys do become available, I think we have to consider bringing them and trying to acquire them. A lot of those players, before we got to the actual date, were gone by that time, either re-signed or franchised or things like that, and he wasn't. So we aggressively pursued it. Again, you never know once you get into that Monday afternoon how these things are going to work, but we're again just really excited, and he's just again, his next 3 years should be the best football he plays in our mind, and we're excited about that.
Right, with Bakhtiari, I think we all could see the decision that was coming, but you ever maybe look back and injuries happen in football, obviously, but this is a guy that was on track to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, still has a case, but New Year's Eve in 2020, do you ever look back and be like, damn, like what could have been with this, and just what has happened the last couple of years? Yeah,
mostly for David. I just think, he played for such a high level for us for so long, and where he was playing at that moment, even the times when he did come back and play for us in the last 3 years, he played at a very, very high level. And certainly that would have helped our football team. But also I think just, to see everything he went through as a, fourth-round draft pick, to earn it, going through his rookie year, to earning everything that he earned, it's just a tough break. And injuries are always a tough break. And but I think you look back at that and just kind of, I don't spend a whole lot of time on the what-ifs, but that was one of those kind of punches you don't see coming. And, I think as we went through it, he did everything he could possibly do to get back out there, and he's still doing that. And I think if he can get this thing right, I think he's still got a lot of really good football ahead of him, because all those goals you talked about, the Hall of Fame, I think those are all out there for him.